Between 1990 and 2000, airbags killed 175 people in the United States, not in crashes. From the airbag itself, children, small adults, passengers out of position by a few inches when the bag fired. The same system that saved 50,000 lives was deploying with enough force to break necks at close range. The inflation speed that made airbags effective was also what made them lethal to anyone too near the module. Engineers knew the fix wasn't a slower airbag, it was a smarter one. To understand what changed, you need to see why speed was non-negotiable in the first place. The timing problem is worse than the headline suggests. 30 milliseconds is the number everyone cites. But the engineering challenge isn't simply inflating a bag fast enough to intercept your head. Any explosive compound can fill a bag quickly. The actual problem is inflating it fast enough to be useful and deflating it fast enough to not be lethal, in a sequence that must complete within approximately 10 milliseconds. For an occupant whose weight, position, and distance from the module, the system has never measured and cannot measure in real time. That constraint is what the airbag actually solves, not speed. A precisely timed sequence at speed. The propellant is sodium azide, a white crystalline powder, stable at room temperature and violently reactive when heated above roughly 300 degrees Celsius. The inflator module behind the steering wheel contains a compressed pellet of it, approximately 200 grams, alongside a small electrical initiator called a squib. When the crash sensor sends the deployment signal, the squib receives between 1 and 3 amperes of current and reaches ignition temperature in under 1 millisecond. The sodium azide detonates. The reaction releases pure nitrogen gas at a rate sufficient to fill a 60-liter bag in under 20 milliseconds. The nitrogen is inert. The sodium azide is not. Unreacted sodium azide is acutely toxic in milligram quantities. Its decomposition produces sodium metal as a byproduct, a compound that reacts explosively with water. No engineer would specify this chemistry for a consumer product installed in 50 million vehicles if an alternative met the timing requirement. No alternative did. The reaction was chosen not because it was safe to handle, but because nothing else generated the gas volume fast enough. The entire inflator chemistry is a controlled compromise between what is ideal and what is physically possible in 20 milliseconds. Here is what makes the timing requirement genuinely difficult. At the moment of a 30-mile-per-hour frontal collision, your body continues forward at 30 miles per hour. Your unrestrained head reaches the steering column in approximately 80 milliseconds. The airbag must be fully inflated before that arrival, requiring completed inflation within the first 30 milliseconds of crash detection. But a fully inflated bag at the moment of face contact transfers force almost directly, the same way a rigid surface would. The bag must already be venting pressure through deliberate apertures in its fabric at the moment of contact, yielding progressively rather than stopping the head instantaneously. If stopping a head instantaneously causes different injuries than the crash itself. This is what 30 milliseconds actually represents. Not raw inflation speed, but the precision of a sequence that must deliver full inflation and the beginning of controlled deflation within a 10 millisecond window for an occupant the system has never profiled. In a crash whose severity it has 15 milliseconds to evaluate. The sensor, the squib, the propellant chemistry, and the bag's vent geometry are all calibrated against that single constraint. Every component exists to solve one version of the same problem. Be deployed and already yielding before the occupant arrives, in less time than a camera shutter opens and closes. The deployment threshold is a deceleration between 8 and 14 G, depending on vehicle and sensor calibration. Hard emergency braking produces approximately 0.8 G. A severe pothole impact produces under 1 G. The sensor must distinguish a collision's deceleration profile, rapid onset, sustained magnitude, above threshold, from every non-collision input the vehicle encounters in normal use. The accelerometer samples vehicle deceleration approximately every millisecond. The deployment decision is made within 15 milliseconds of threshold crossing. At 25 milliseconds, the squib fires. At 30 milliseconds, the bag is fully inflated. At 80 milliseconds, the occupant's head arrives. The crash sensor is a micro-electromechanical accelerometer, a silicon chip with a microscopic proof mass suspended on etched silicon springs, machined at scales measured in microns. Under deceleration, that mass deflects in proportion to the applied force. The deflection alters electrical capacitance between the suspended mass and fixed reference electrodes, sampled continuously. The processing algorithm evaluates both the magnitude and the rate of change of deceleration simultaneously. A collision signature rises faster and holds longer than any non-collision event in the vehicle's operating envelope. When that profile is confirmed across consecutive samples, the deployment signal fires. Detection and decision, under 15 milliseconds. The sodium azide reaction proceeds as 2 NaN3 yields 2 Na plus 3 N2. 3 molecules of nitrogen gas are released for every 2 molecules of sodium azide consumed. The volumetric expansion is sufficient to fill the bag from a propellant pellet small enough to fit inside the steering column hub. The sodium metal byproduct is neutralized by secondary compounds, potassium nitrate and silicon dioxide, staged within the inflator to convert it into inert potassium silicate glass before the gas enters the bag. The white powder visible in the cabin after deployment is not combustion residue. It is talc or cornstarch, a storage coating applied to the nylon bag fabric to prevent the material from adhering to itself during the years it spends folded inside the module. It is not smoke. Nothing in the cabin burned. The bag is already deflating before your face reaches it, not as a side effect, as the design requirement. Between 1990 and 1997, the system saved an estimated 50,000 lives in the United States. In the same period, 175 people died from airbag deployment in crashes that would not otherwise have been fatal. None the sensor performed correctly. The squib fired within specification. The sodium azide reaction completed on schedule. The bag inflated and began deflating within the engineered window. The problem was something the accelerometer could not measure and the propellant chemistry could not accommodate. The occupant was not where the system assumed they would be when the bag fired. And solving that problem required dismantling every assumption the original design had made about the person sitting in front of it. The out-of-position problem had a specific geometry. A driver sitting normally, upright, belted, at approximately 30 centimeters from the steering wheel center, experiences airbag deployment as designed. The bag is fully inflated before they arrive. It begins yielding at contact. The impact is distributed. The outcome is the one the system was designed to produce. A driver sitting 15 centimeters from the wheel, leaning forward, short stature, unbelted, and already moving toward the column at the moment of impact, arrives at the bag while it is still inflating. They don't hit a yielding cushion. They hit a bag in mid-expansion, moving outward at the moment of face contact, adding velocity to the impact rather than absorbing it. The same 30 milliseconds that protects the first occupant injures the second. The sensor cannot distinguish between them. The propellant cannot adjust. Once the squib fires, the sequence completes regardless of what is in front of the bag. The engineering response was not to make the bag softer. A softer bag at lower pressure cannot stop a normally positioned occupant's head in a severe crash. Reducing peak inflation pressure solves the out-of-position problem and creates a new fatality risk for correctly positioned occupants in high-severity collisions. The response was dual-stage deployment. A dual-stage inflator contains 2 independent propellant charges within the same module. The first stage fires in all deployment events, generating a partial inflation, approximately 70 to 80% of the bag's rated volume, at a reduced pressure. The second stage fires within 10 to 15 milliseconds of the first, completing inflation to full pressure only if crash severity warrants it. In a moderate collision, the bag deploys on the first stage only. In a severe collision, both stages fire in sequence, delivering full protection within the same 30 millisecond window. The occupant who is out of position receives a lower force initial deployment. The occupant in a high-severity crash receives full deployment. The sensor determines which sequence executes. This required the sensor to do something the original accelerometer could not. Classify crash severity in real time within 15 milliseconds of threshold crossing with enough precision to select between two propellant stages. The algorithm that made that classification possible was more complex than the original deployment decision by an order of magnitude. It evaluated deceleration magnitude, rate of change, duration above threshold, and the relationship between those variables across the first 10 milliseconds of the collision event, all to answer one question: how bad is this, and how much bag does this occupant need? Modern vehicles carry between 6 and 10 airbag modules: front driver, front passenger, side curtain, knee bolster, rear curtain. Each has an independent inflator, an independent deployment threshold, and an independent stage configuration calibrated for its specific location and the occupant geometry it protects. The seat sensor beneath the passenger cushion measures occupant weight and communicates it to the deployment controller. A passenger below a defined weight threshold triggers a suppressed or disabled passenger airbag because the injury risk to a small occupant outweighs the protection benefit in most collision scenarios. The system that fires in 30 milliseconds now knows, before the crash happens, how much of itself to deploy. Here's what most people watching this don't realize. The airbag in your vehicle has been continuously updated since the car was manufactured. Not the hardware, the software, the deployment algorithm, the severity classification thresholds, and the stage timing parameters can be revised through firmware updates applied during routine service. The bag in the module is the same bag installed on the assembly line. The decision-making governing when and how it fires has been updated every time the vehicle visited a dealer since purchase. The 30-millisecond hardware sequence is fixed. The intelligence governing when that sequence initiates is not. The sodium azide chemistry that made the original system possible is being phased out in a minority of newer applications. The alternative propellants, compressed gas inflators using stored argon or a mixture of gases, or hybrid systems combining a small propellant charge with stored gas, generate lower deployment temperatures and produce less toxic byproduct chemistry. They cannot match sodium azide's inflation speed at equivalent volume in current form, which is why the transition is partial and application-specific rather than universal. Where inflation speed requirements can be relaxed, side curtain airbags, which have more time to deploy because lateral collisions develop more slowly than frontal ones. Alternative propellants are increasingly standard. Where 20 milliseconds remains non-negotiable, sodium azide remains the solution. The 175 deaths between 1990 and 2000 produced the regulatory and engineering response that led to dual-stage deployment, the occupant weight sensing, suppression systems, and severity adaptive algorithms. Every one of those deaths was a data point that exposed a gap between what the original deployment assumption predicted and what the physical reality of occupant position produced. The deaths did not occur because the engineering failed. They occurred because the engineering had been optimized for one occupant in one position and encountered a different one. The airbag does not know who is in front of it. Every engineering advance since 1997 has been an attempt to give it a better answer to that question before the squib fires. The 30-millisecond sequence has not changed. What changed is everything the system does in the seconds before the crash to make those 30 milliseconds work for the specific person sitting in front of it. Speed was never the hard part. Speed is chemistry and physics, solvable with the right propellant in the right quantity. The hard part was making something that fires in 30 milliseconds behave as if it has had 30 years to learn about the person it is protecting. That problem is not fully solved. It is the problem the industry is still working on.